Last year I promised I will do a video about heat training. I didn't do that because I had too much work and I got stuck in, too much work and some competitions as well, a lot of competitions. And I want to talk about heat training because I told you that I have a few tricks up my sleeve, and heat training is one of them. And I've been using heat training to improve my performance, and I think heat training has been a huge part. So this video will be about what heat training is and how I'm using it to improve my performance. I've just finished a heat session, that's why I have my core app on and I'm checking training peaks, and also that's why I'm eating. The first time I was doing heat training was almost 20 years ago now, and that was a normal heat adaption I did, which is also heat training. That was ahead of the World Championship in cycling for juniors, and we were going to compete in Mexico, in Aguascalientes. So we arrived like, I don't really remember, but maybe 8 days ahead or 10 days ahead, a week at least, ahead of the race, and we tried to expose ourselves to the heat. I'm not sure if we did the right thing or not, probably not, because we went for like 4 hours midday. That was pretty hard, but I actually performed really well during the race. I didn't have a top spot, but I was in a good breakaway and we got caught on the last lap. So yeah, I had a good ride, but I finished like, I don't remember, 25th something, 45th, I don't really remember. I did heat adaptation training many times after that as well, but not in the same form as I'm doing it now. A few years ago, I was reintroduced to heat training by the science department of the Swedish Olympic team, and that's because I was coaching an athlete who was going to do the Paralympics, and Paralympics was in Paris, and it was in September, so it was pretty warm. It was going to be pretty warm, and that's why we did like heat adaptation, and also we talked a lot about how to use heat training to perform better. What we did was we started with heat training as an alternative to altitude training. It's not the same thing, but we have like the same effects from it, and it's so much easier to do heat training than to go to like Sierra Nevada or the Alps or somewhere to do altitude training. And also it's a lot cheaper. To be able to really dig deep into this and to really understand it, I wanted to really test it. And the best person to test it was me. So I was just taking it on, and I was doing it quite a lot. I was reading, I was talking to everyone, and read everything I could find on it. So, and also of course I tried to get myself the experience from like training a lot with the core monitor. That's like a heat sensor that you put on your heart rate belt. The core monitor reads the skin and tells you what skin temperature you have. It also uses a formula to estimate the core temperature. So I've been using a core body temperature monitor to like for racing, for training, not just for heat training, but also for normal races, for normal training rides, during the winter, during the summer, all the time, just trying to really understand it. And it's been really interesting, and it's been really useful as well, not just for like this alternative altitude training, but also for understanding how I can improve my performance when I'm racing in the heat. So I'm living in Spain, Mallorca, and it's quite warm here. during like June until September. It can be really useful to have a better understanding of how I can improve my performance in the heat. Like I said before, I'm using a core. With this one, it actually reads the skin temperature and then estimates the core temperature. And it's important to know this because as it just estimates the core temperature, it could be wrong. And I will tell you more about this in the safety part that I have later on. But it's important to understand that it estimates the core temperature. It actually works really well, at least for me, it works really well. But sometimes, maybe a couple of times, 5 times, I know it has been reading wrong, probably because it's not really stuck to the skin, if it's like moving around, or if I put it on too late, or if I'm losing Bluetooth, or something can go wrong. It's just important to understand that. Core has pretty good heat zone test, so you can test where your heat zone is to understand where you should try to like be in those 20 minutes where you're supposed to do the heat training. I'll tell you later on about that. The most common heat zone for like this heat training is somewhere between 38.5 to 39 degrees in core temperature. That's the most common range, and luckily I'm within this range. If you're not, it could be a bit more difficult to like find where you're supposed to be during your heat sessions. So you can try to do that test to see where you are. The thing with that test is that it's pretty good to see if you are within this range, but if you're not, it's not really that good to like figure out where you're or if you're not in that range. So it's good, but also a bit difficult. So hopefully you're within this range. If you're not, it's more complicated. For the heat sessions, I'm trying to add the heat sessions like separately. Sometimes I can do the heat sessions directly after another training session, or I'm doing just heat training. I actually tried heat training once before. I even spoke with this science department within the Olympic team, and that was like when some people was just talking about the idea, like the theory behind heat training. So I tried to combine my interval training with heat training, and that was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I tried to have the same power output and do the same kind of intervals while also using my winter clothes during the summer. So I ended up with like I got really tired, a lot of fatigue, and also not so good interval sessions. So I just did that like 2 times or something, and then I stopped, and then I had the pretty bad experience from it. So it wasn't a big problem, it was just I didn't like it, and I thought this is nothing you can actually do. But I've changed my mind because I just did it wrong back then. So basically what I do, it's quite simple. I'm trying to do 5 heat sessions per week for 5 weeks. After that, I'm doing 3 heat sessions per week for, it's a bit different. Sometimes I do it for like 5 weeks more, and then I do it for like 10 weeks more, and then I have a break, and then I restart with the 5 times per week for 5 weeks. And for me, it's been working really well. One important thing that I've done is a lot of testing. I've done a lot of blood testing to make sure my ferritin levels, iron levels are okay. Because earlier in my life I had some problems with low iron levels, and that was also like 20 years ago, like the same time as I was doing the World Championship in Mexico. So that's been a long time ago, but I've always been really careful so I don't do something stupid with this. At the same time as I've checked my iron levels, I've also checked my hemoglobin levels. And that's important because that's actually what I want to improve. At the same time as I don't want my iron levels to decrease. I've been doing like 5 or even 6 tests over the last 18 months, and every single time I've improved my hemoglobin levels a little bit, or actually quite a lot. It depends on how long it's been between the tests. I think I'm probably for the moment I'm not that high anymore because I had mycoplasma in December, and that's a rough one. It was a rough one. I wasn't too sick, but it took some time, and mycoplasma is always a pretty bad one to have if you're an athlete, or no matter who you are. It's just bad. But before my mycoplasma, I was really strong, and during the last year I actually been quite close to my top level all time, even my top level before I had glandular fever. I got glandular fever a few years ago from the Epstein-Barr virus, and I got really sick for a very long time. So I wasn't able to do any proper training for years actually. And those all-time high levels are from before that, and I've actually been beating my 1 minute power output all time, and also 5 minute power output. So I've almost done 500 watts for 5 minutes, and I'm not really there yet for the 20-minute power output, but I'm not too far away either. So that's really good, and I'm very happy with that because I'm not 25 years old, I'm 35 years old, and it's not so easy to improve anymore. So I really need to use those tricks that I have, and like I told you, heat training is one of them. A key for me with the heat sessions has always been to try to add them into my schedule without adding too much extra effort. That's hard. That's I really have to plan a lot and try to figure out when to do it and how to do it. And I'm not doing like the most common protocol. That's when you do like a 10-minute threshold and you have a lot of clothes on, and it's a bit quicker because you can probably be done in like 1 hour 70 minutes or something. Not 1 hour and 70 minutes, 60 or 70 minutes. What I do instead, at least when I have the time for it, I'm just trying to put as much clothes on as possible, and then I just go on and on in my zone 2, like low effort. And with consistency I will end up with within my heat zone after like maybe 45-50 minutes, sometimes 55 minutes. It's actually harder to reach your heat zone the more heat adapted you are, because if you are really heat adapted, your body will be fighting the heat in a better way. You will sweat more and you will cool down more, so you have to try harder. Actually, you can have more clothes on, you can have more heat on in the room that you are, but it will actually get harder to reach your heat zone. But that's good, because you will actually, it will be harder to reach your heat zone when you're doing races as well. So that's a good thing. It's just not really comfortable when you have to just struggle for a long time to go there when you're training. I'm also adding some heat sessions just when I've finished like an interval session, at least when I do it indoors. Outdoors is impossible, but indoors I can do it. So I just, the moment I finish my session, I would just close the windows, turn off the fan, and turn on the heat instead, and I will just try to keep pedaling while I'm putting more clothes on. It's difficult, but yeah, that's a good way to do it, I think. The bad thing with adding a heat session just after your interval session is that you will add more training stress on top of your training stress from the interval session. It's effective in a way if you just look at time and not taking too many showers during the week, because if you're an athlete you don't want to shower too much because you're already tired of it. You do it all the time. Your training schedule need to have a little bit less training stress overall when you're adding the heat sessions, because that's adding more stress as well. And for the recovery, it's really important to rehydrate after the sessions. So before the session, I'm standing on my scale and I'm just noting what weight I have before the session, and then I do the same after the session, just to know how much water or sweat I've been losing during the session. And then after the session, I'm trying to rehydrate 150% of the sweat loss. So if I'm losing 2 liters of water, I'm trying to add 3 liters. Not just directly after, but I'm trying to drink maybe a liter directly after the session, together with some minerals. I'm using Umara U-Hydrate. I'm using 2 tablets of them, and that's like, they will replace the sweat that you lost, because it's some salt and minerals in it as well. And then I'm trying to the upcoming 3 hours, I'm trying to refill the rest of the water as well. Maybe together with some more, maybe another tablet of U-Hydrate after 2 hours or so. Just to trying to recover as soon as possible. I also don't drink alcohol. Sometimes I can do it. Maybe I can have a beer or a glass of wine, but I'm always thinking about the timing of it, so it's not too close to any heat session, so I never drink alcohol. And if you think that's too much of a sacrifice to don't drink alcohol, you should probably not do heat training, because that requires a lot of effort to do those 5 sessions per week for 5 weeks, and yeah, just you have to be way more focused than that. The normal protocol for doing these sessions, like what they do when they're doing the studies and what most people do, is to warm up for 10-15 minutes and then do 10 minutes on your FTP, your threshold. And then after that you are pedaling a bit more, maybe zone 2, zone 3, and just wait to get onto your heat zone. And then you are doing your heat zone for 20 minutes, consistent effort, but probably really low intensity, maybe low zone 2, high zone 1 if you have 5 zones, like the Joe Friel's cycling zones. And your heart rate will be high. So even if you're putting not too many watts out, you will have a high heart rate, because that's how the body works when you're overheated. I wouldn't say that heat training is particularly dangerous. I think the most dangerous thing with cycling is probably traffic. But this is indoors and yourself doing this. So there are some things that you should keep in mind. Like I said before, keep in mind that the core is a good tool, but it can go wrong. So if you're feeling awful, if you're feeling no, this is wrong, but the core says that you just have 37.8 degrees core temperature, something can go wrong. Something with the Bluetooth connection, heart rate belt. If the heart rate is wrong, the formula from the core might be wrong. So always trust your feeling first. It's the same thing with everything. If you're out riding and you're feeling awful, but you can see that you're doing good power numbers and good heart rate, but you feel awful, trust your feeling, always. It's the same with the core. The core is good, and just be smart. Also, don't go above 39 degrees. If you're going above 39 degrees, you have to know exactly what you're doing. Sometimes I can reach 39.1, but normally I reach 39. Today I reached exactly 39 degrees, and I managed to control my heat, like taking off some clothes, taking off my rain jacket, gloves, a few things really, just and the temperature didn't just kept increasing, so I managed to control it, and this is something you really have to learn how to do. If you don't know how to do it, definitely don't go beyond 39 degrees. If you reach 40 degrees core temperature, you can actually harm some things in your body. You don't want to do that, so keep this 1 Celsius in between your training session and what's harmful. That should be enough, and that should also be enough even if the core is a bit wrong or not super perfect. It's still 1 degree. You shouldn't have to worry about that. Also, don't lose more than 3% of your body weight during the session, because that will be water, sweat. It's probably not harmful at all, even if you're losing 4%, but I think it's good to have like some kind of limit for it. So for me, I'm saying 3%. For my clients, I say maximum 3%, even a bit less could be good. So that's like maximum. It's like not like maximum speed. Maximum speed on a road, people think that they have to keep that speed. It's also not true, but people do it anyway. It's not the same thing here. So 3% is not something that you have to reach. It's something that you shouldn't go beyond. Only do heat training if you're healthy. If you have any sickness, diseases, something, don't do it. If you're pregnant, don't do it. I also recommend that you're 18 years old or older. Your energy levels need to be good. You need to have glycogen in your muscles. Otherwise, it will be really hard to reach a high core temperature. And if you do, it would be quite hard to make it stable, because it will just keep increasing once you get there. So don't go there. Don't do it. It will just be too hard to recover from. So make sure to stabilize your energy levels ahead. To maintain heat training during the season might be hard. I did it last year and it went okay, but it was a bit up and down. I might post an update about that later during the season. I won't promise that because it didn't go well last time. It took a year. And if you have any questions, write them in the comment section and I will try to answer them all as good as possible. And don't forget to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and I will see you next time.